Hello and welcome to a very stormy studio today. It's Ed here. It's absolutely pouring down outside. There are flashes of lightning and rumbles of thunder, so apologies if the lighting changes strangely for no apparent reason, but there's not a lot I can do about it. What I am doing today is looking at emulating film with a digital camera and digital processing. So this is leading on from the last couple of weeks where I shot film and then said I was excited about shooting digital, then shot digital and said actually I fancied shooting film again. So I've got some film which I'm going to shoot and I will talk to you about next week, but this week I'm going to try and emulate film photography as best I can in both process and results. So I've dug out my old Lumix camera. This is the one before the one that I normally use as my walk around camera, and I have hobbled it deliberately. So what I've done is I've taped over the playback button so I can't review my shots after I've taken them, and I've taped over the control dial so that I can't change the ISO, the white balance, any of the things that you could change on a digital camera between shots that you couldn't do on a film camera. I can change obviously from shutter, aperture, priority, and change my shutter speeds or apertures here on the dial, because you could do that with a normal camera, but I can't look back at what I've done, which is the most important thing, so I can't be saying, oh, I'll just move that a little bit and do it again. The other thing I've done is I've found the lowest capacity SD card that I could. So this is a 128 meg SD card, and when it's formatted, which I've just done, it will hold 38 exposures. So that's pretty much what you would get on a full roll of film. You usually get 36 or 37, so 38 not too far off. So again, I'm limited in the number of shots that I can take. I've set my settings to ISO 400 and daylight white balance. I'm going to go out and shoot on this just a little way out from the studio. I don't want to go far because it's pouring with rain. And I've also created a set of Photoshop actions which aim to emulate the look of film that I get. So it's kind of the Ed look, I'm calling it. I'm not going to show you exactly what the secret recipe is, but I'll go through what I've done briefly and show you how that's applied to the photos. And what I'm doing as well is I'm applying those settings globally to the whole 38 frames in one go. I'm just going to do a batch. That way, it's more realistically emulating what you would do with film, where you wouldn't go through each frame, taking different development settings for each one. You couldn't do that. You run it through the chemicals and you get back the same thing for all 36 frames. So I'm going to do that and we'll have a look at the results and see how they compare with film.
So the rain has actually completely gone and it's really sunny now, and it's left these amazing puddles everywhere. So I'm going to try and get some reflections and yeah, make the most of the water that we've got. But maybe my choice of 400 film wasn't actually perfect at this point, but I'm stuck with it, aren't I? That's the thing about digital film. So my last couple of shots were on shutter priority because I wanted to make sure that there was enough light, but there's definitely enough light now, so I'm going for aperture priority to make sure I get everything sharp front to back. I'm going to try and get shots of these gates here with the barbed wire around them. Might make something, might not, who knows. So the sun's gone in and I've swapped back to shutter priority. I've gone with an 1/800th just to make sure I get any motion blur removed. It's showing me about f2.8, so quite a thin depth of field for street photography, but yeah, that's okay. Glad I brought my coat. This is what I hate about photography in Stockport and thereabouts. You're just wandering around in the rain most of the time, but every so often there's a good picture. Down to my last shot, saying 1 on the counter, so I've got to make it count because I want to get these yellow and red geometrics, but I've only got one attempt. Normally I could take a few and see which is the best, but just got the one shot, so let's make it count. So there we go, memory card full. That is the end. And I think that shot was a bit blurry, to be honest, because I went for aperture priority to try and get everything sharp. but there's not enough light. Oh well, let's see what we get back at the studio.
Okay, so back in the dry now at the studio, and here are the 38 images that were on the memory card. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to run a Photoshop action to process the whole batch so that we have a consistent look throughout. The process I'm going to use isn't quite the one that I normally use. I don't want to just give away exactly how I do it because it's kind of a look that I want to use again. So the action I'm going to run is the Ed look. There we go, so that will run the action on all of them. And it should just get on with it. And then I will be able to show you the full set of 38 images. So if we just look at the first image, you can see the difference between the image that came out of the digital camera and how it looks when I've filmified it. So you can see that there's a lot more cyan in the sky. The contrast has been lowered. Obviously, I've added this border, and there's just something more analog about the look. Even when it's this size and you can't really see the grain, it just being there seems to make a difference. So in the first image, you can see that there isn't only one pyramid in Stockport. It's referenced in other buildings as well, including here on DFS's roof. On the second image, you're looking at a retail park near the studio, and I like the way the film process has made the car stand out more, and I think it's a nice after the rain shot. The next shot is some buildings that are about to be demolished, and I tried to get the reflection here at the bottom. Obviously, I wasn't clearly able to see what I was doing, and because I couldn't review the image, I couldn't see that I'd lost the tops of the buildings in the reflection and that it was slightly overexposed. The next one fits well into my geometrics set. It's the back of a lorry turning out past these buildings. It just so happened to be happening as I was taking these pictures, and it's probably one of my favourites. The next is just a straight-on view of the building that's to be demolished, but you can see some nice detail inside there. And again, this could be cropped to create a more interesting image. The next one is the wire and the fence. Again, it's not a particularly exciting image, but I think it does look better with the film look. The picture of the Tesco supermarket shot from the underpass, I think definitely works better. In the filmic look, you can actually see the shadowy interior of the tunnel which the motorway goes over. In the original image, it's totally dark, so it just is a frame, but it doesn't really add anything, whereas here it's a bit more three-dimensional. And again, the colours seem to work nicely, the reds popping of the Tesco logo. The next shot is a barber shop that's been closed down for quite some time, and there's actually a barrier in the window. It's not a reflection, so that's kind of an interesting thing, and you've got a red and green together. The next shot is the tower blocks at Lancashire Hill with the river flowing towards them. I like the way the process has created a sort of reddish tint to the water, which isn't there. It's a kind of false colour. It's part of the process, which means I like that because it's organic and it's not something that I've added later in Photoshop. Although Photoshop has actually technically added it, it hasn't added it with my input. It's just using the recipe that I've used, in the same way that the chemicals in a developing tank would always do the same thing. The next shot I really like, and I was trying to take a picture of the building here, which has a sort of ghost sign on it. It was obviously used for advertising, but it's obviously not being used anymore. So I wanted to show that. You can't really see it in the original, but when it's filmified and the contrast is lowered, you can actually see it there. And the other extra detail which I really like is this woman here walking with her trolley away from the camera. The next few shots are all taken around the junction between the Goyt and the Tame, where they flow together and become the Mersey, and it's a kind of hidden spot, but you can get some interesting photos there. Again, I think they all look better in the filmified version, particularly the one where you can see the water going over a weir, so it's turquoise in the top right-hand corner and reddish in the bottom left-hand corner. I quite like the picture I took around the back of Sainsbury's. Again, they all work better, I think, with the filmic look. The next shot I really like, that's the front of Sainsbury's, and again, the colouring just kind of works really well and gives it a kind of melancholy sadness. Then there's a shot. I was again trying to take a picture just of this empty space, but a Uber Eats, a delivery driver, walked into the shot and created quite a nice geometric, because you've got his geometric on the bag, and then you've got the geometrics of the signs here and the side of the building. So it's not a great photo, but it's kind of nice. On the next one, I was trying to take a picture of the church through the archway that leads to it. I couldn't see that the top of the building was missing, and again, I couldn't look at it afterwards using the review function because I'd disabled that. So that's all I've got. But I kind of quite like it, and the weird little blue bit that it's been created by my recipe just adds a bit of flavour. The next shot is some more steps. I think these are another set of steps that have been painted by Larry at some point, and that harks back to last week's episode. The film look has given it a more muted look and accentuated the red and green, so it's got a more minimalist colour palette, which I like. The next shot is where Stockport is becoming gentrified again, or bohemianised, because the building to the left here is the new Bohemian Bar. Then we've got a workman going into the darkness of the underground car park. I think it has added something with the colouring and the fact that it's just created this little blue patch that wasn't there. It's just an artefact of the digital developing process. The next shot is somebody with an umbrella walking away from the camera. Again, I just wanted to get a rainy day picture, but I think I missed the focus, so it's more focused on the foreground. So yeah, not really a keeper. The next shot is the benches, which I really quite like. Again, I might crop this a bit, but I like the way the brown bench has been boosted a little bit, and so it stands out more than it does in the original photo. And the last one, I really like, actually. Again, the blues and the reds kind of work together, and the process works together. Yeah, so I only needed that one last shot. I didn't need any more. And that is the set. So out of 38 exposures, how many keepers are there? I'd say there's probably only one, at the most two portfolio shots, maybe 5 keepers, and the rest are throwaway. But it was just a quick test and proof of concept, really. If I do this again, it will hopefully have more keepers and fewer weepers. Right, okay, I hope you found that an interesting experiment. I certainly did. Thanks again for your time. If you've any comments on what I've been doing this week, please do leave them in the comments section. It's really great to hear from you. Like and subscribe, as always, so you don't miss next week's thrilling instalment. But that's it for now. Thanks again so much for joining me. Have a great week. Bye for now.